Just recognize that as esophagus. And I have things labeled, so obviously you may have to identify that. This is the mucosa, submucosa, the whole thing, 3 and 4, muscularis externa, 5, you can barely see it there, but serosa or adventitia. Okay, let's see what else can we see. Let's look at a closer up view of the top. This is esophagus, and you might have to be able to identify the epithelium. It's a stratified squamous epithelium. Now remember, stratified squamous means many flat layers of cells. We always call it by the apical layers. These are kind of stem cells dividing, but the whole thing is the epithelium. This is esophagus. You'd expect a stratified epithelium to protect against all the food shards you swallow. So you can slough off the top layers and have layers underneath. You have the best lamina propria in esophagus. Okay, it's just very pronounced. So that is a very pronounced muscularis mucosa. So once again, the epithelium is a stratified squamous epithelium, lamina propria, muscularis mucosa, then that's going to be submucosa there. Here's unlabeled esophagus still, okay? From here to here, you should still be able to tell the epithelium, lamina propria, muscularis mucosa. This looks like some glands in the submucosa here. This is the inner layer of the muscularis externa. It would be the circular layer of muscularis externa. So here's a nice view of muscularis externa. Can you tell where the break is between the circular and longitudinal layers? Right there. So that's the break. This is all circular and that's all longitudinal. Okay. Let's move on from esophagus to stomach. Now the stomach has a bunch of different views. This is stomach. The 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess let's go outer to inner. Serosa or adventitia. Muscularis externa, submucosa. This is all mucosa. What I like about this picture, it actually shows better here. If it looks like a pit, call it gastric pit. If it's more down here, I'm trying to get you to identify gastric gland. So closer up, 2, gastric gland. What do you think 3 is? Gastric pit. 1, muscularis mucosa. Don't try to identify lamina propria, you just can't be seen well there. Here's another view of the stomach, probably a different region. Don't worry about which region it is. That's a pit. If it's deeper in the mucosa, that's a gland. Gastric pit, gastric gland. That's muscularis mucosa there. So that's submucosa underneath that. So let's look at the muscularis layer, muscularis external layer here. So I pulled back. So basically, I'm moving the slide this way because it's kind of here out of sight. Now in the stomach, you're supposed to be able to identify 3 muscle layers here. Okay, so let me point to what I think I see. This is a layer, that's a layer, and then that's a layer. I think the layers are shown better on this slide. I even have them labeled. This is still stomach. So 5 is all mucosa. That's a gastric pit, gastric gland. That's the muscularis mucosa there. This loose CT is submucosa. Then you have the 3 layers of muscularis externa. The inner one, number 3, is the oblique layer, circular, and then outer longitudinal. Okay, for number 1 there. So I like how they have the natural break. Makes it easy for me to see which layers are which. Here's another picture, not labeled. Can you see them? Oblique, circular, longitudinal. That's still the stomach. Okay. We're going to move on from stomach to small intestine. The 3 parts are listed on the board. This is the first part, the duodenum. So 5 is mucosa, submucosa. We see 2 layers of muscularis externa. That's the longitudinal, that's the circular. Number 1 is a nice looking serosa. Okay. Now you can see the villi, the little finger-like projections. You can even see deep inside, those would be the crypts. You got villi crypt, okay? But for the duodenum, I would note number 6. That's the Brunner's glands. You only see them here. That's how you tell you're in duodenum. I know it's hard to see in the dark, so I'll turn on the lights. I'm sure to leave this there. The next part is jejunum. This is jejunum. Number 2, pointing to a nice villi. That's a nice intestinal crypt. Remember the thing I said, the crypts of Lieberkuhn with the Paneth cells? That's what you should call number 1. This is a good slide for, if I'm going to ask you those crypts, it's going to be jejunum. This is a closer up view of the crypts. And the red cells, the reddish stain indicates Paneth cells. So the crypts, and they're all red pretty much. So these are, oh, I'm sorry. These are all intestinal crypts with the Paneth cells. All right, this is ileum. How you know you're looking at ileum is well, you can't miss it. Don't even have to label it. That big purple splotch is malt. That's how you know you're in ileum. Okay, so I'm giving you the clues. Where are we in the GI tract? See malt, ileum. Don't put small intestine, put ileum. 1 and 2 are muscularis externa. This is the inner circular, outer longitudinal layers. Number 3, that layer is submucosa. Number 4 is malt. Number 5 is mucosa. 6 looks like pinkish muscle. Muscularis mucosa. Muscularis mucosa, number 6. That's ileum. Let's look at the colon. Right there. The layers, number 1, mucosa. Number 2, submucosa. 3 and 4, muscularis externa. That's the inner circular layer, the outer longitudinal layer. They're very thick. They're big slabs of steak. In the colon, it's got to move the excuse me, it's got to move the feces along as it compacts in the colon. So number 5, serosa adventitia. Okay. So notice the arrangement, this kind of tight tubular arrangement of the mucosa. There are columnar cells in there. If we take a closer look, there's a malt in there. So you have malt in ileum, but you also have it in colon. Okay. This is a closer up view of the mucosa. The most important thing about the mucosa of the colon are look at all the goblet cells. I mean, I point to one, but look at them all. Goblet cells are mucus cells, right? I mean, the whole colon is about 25% goblet cells, so you know they're important. There's an interesting case where a